Hello and welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
I'm John.
And I'm Brian.
And we're picking up with a new segment on the channel called Would Play Again. Now, with the ever-growing cult of the new that is in the tabletop industry, and particularly in board games, it's always about those precious moments that get games to the table. And with a lot of people having a lot of games sitting on their shelf of opportunity or shelf of shame. Now, it's all about picking up some games and looking at how often they're going to get to your table. And are they worth your time? And to a degree, there will be a review, but it's really focusing on that point of what is worth sticking around in your collection. I know there's a lot of people that will be culling games because they've got too much, they've not got space for it. I think I'm in that pretty much myself. So, without further ado, we started with Discworld. Okay, Ankh-Morpork. Now, the first thing to obviously say about that is it is an out-of-print game. Now, due to the fact that it is out of print, obviously getting hold of it, you're going to have to go through the second-hand market. And this was my grail game. And by that, I mean, it was the one thing I wanted to try, one thing I wanted to get my hands on, and it is likely never to be culled. But on the scale of that is how regularly am I going to play it. Now, John and Brian are with me today because we picked it up, we started playing. And I think, without spoiling too much, we had pretty much a good old time.
Fun, very, very fun game.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah. So we played it 3 players. Our average game time is around 40 minutes. It does say up to about an hour, so it sits in that sort of middleweight bucket. Overall, with regards to the rules and the teach itself is fairly quickly. You'll be having you'll have a character that will be secret. That'll be your end game conditions. You'll be picking up a handful of cards and playing out those cards to gain territory, make trouble, and buy property. So, in a nutshell, that's pretty much how the game itself will work. And yeah, what do we think about it?
It's simple, it's quick, it's enjoyable. And as you say, it's a grail game. I've heard a lot of people say that they played it, liked it, want to play it, looking for it. And very glad that a copy was picked up and was able to play it, because it's now reached grail status for me, and if I saw a copy I'd buy it. It's simple as that.
I'd definitely buy it as well. I think I like the fact that the cards are all different. I like the fact that the game can swing quite quickly. You think you're doing really well, then all of a sudden something happens and it changes the whole board. So that's really, really interesting.
Unfortunately, it was me. I had massive control on the board, probably controlled 2/3, and then an event card come out, much to these guys' enjoyment.
Yeah. Of the times we've played games, and we've been gaming, 3 or 4 years, it's one of the standout moments, the time 5 buildings were wiped out.
Out of 6, and I had all 6 on the board.
Yeah. You remember those sort of moments. It's one that stands out. It's simple. The rules are simple, but it's complex and it's not easy to win.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a take that game in some areas, but it happens so frequently, and it's so often it comes down to your time to take that on somebody else that you just really can't take that to heart. And I think as long as you are the kind of person that just takes it on the chin and know your time will become round very quickly. I think that's
yeah. So we've kind of looked at the overall perspective of the game. Now let's break it down a little bit more further. Let's start with the cons, leading straight on from Brian. It is take that. You are gonna be going somewhere, and then all of a sudden somebody's gonna take one of your minions off the board, or something's gonna happen to one of your buildings. A lot of the time they're based on events. Now you can't then necessarily blame another player because of a random event in the random encounter deck comes out, but there are some bits where people will be targeting your minions to better their game. Now I think that again we take games quite lightheartedly, in the sense of we will be competitive to a point, but we leave it inside each game. Now if your game group's not like that and can be a bit salty in certain respects, then I would pretty much be quite careful of that. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, you could find yourself ganging up on people and people taking it to heart quite easily, I think, in this, if you're played with the wrong people. It's very much one for playing the game, leave it in the game, move on, play again. We've played 3 times in a row, and you just can't keep that from the last game. Right, I'm going to get you because of that, because you'll just not end up winning. You take each game as it comes.
One thing I thought could have been a con but wasn't a con is the theme. I'm not very familiar with the works of Tate Pratchett, and I know I should be, but it didn't make any difference. The cards were clear enough, the objectives were clear enough, there's a nice skin on it that I think people who do like that, they'll get more out of it than I would, but it certainly didn't detract from the game from my point of view.
We're actually picking up on the theme. Now, I did say obviously this was out of print. If you were looking for something like this but wanted it in a modern version, I mean, the components in this are all right. They're very much from the era of the game being produced, and there is a new version on the market called Nantinarkin. Now, my understanding of that is they can't get the rights to Discworld due to the Terry Pratchett estate and such, so we won't see this version with these mechanics again. But Nantinarkin is a slightly upgraded version, pretty much doing the same sort of thing. So if you're stuck and you like this, I'd probably say look for a copy of that. But obviously, this to me was the grail on it, and I suppose that's my next con. It's a grail game. I mean, it's not cheap. They're obviously limited number. You can pay quite a bit of money for certain copies in certain different conditions. But like I say, Grail, it was one that I wanted to treat myself on, and that's where I picked it up, and I am safe to say it won't be leaving the collection on that point.
Yeah, I think you could put this as a pro icon. It could be a gateway game. It's that simple to play. It really is that simple to play. You could teach this to anybody and get them into the hobby purely on, as a first one. You could do this instead of, Ticket to Ride or anything, or Lords of Waterdeep or anything like that. It's that simple. But again, that's a pro because it is so simple, and yet there is such in-depth gameplay.
I think John said it well. It's an easy game to play, but a hard game to win. And there's a lot of thinking about it, and there's some strategy involved as well to position yourself to the point where you can win.
So pointing on to that, the next sort of con for me is there are 7 personalities, and these are your win conditions. Should you not reach your win condition, and it will go to some endgame scoring, but typically you are going to get to your win condition before the action deck runs out. There are 7 of these, but there are only 5 different types of conditions, so I do feel that 3 of the identities that have the same, you can find yourself coming across them quite often. Now, obviously, Brian, in the 3 games that we had, you had that all 3 times.
I did.
But 2 different versions.
Yes.
So I think that from the replayability point of view, maybe having a little bit more in there would be
I'd
good.
like to have tried another personality. I even tried to swap the personalities mid-game with one of the cards that allows you to do that, and I got the same win condition card back again, so it didn't help me any.
Yeah.
So I'd like to play it again without those cards.
So
I was going to say, out of the 4 games we played, twice has been Command of Vimes, which has been going through the deck.
yeah, and that came to me, and I thought that was going to be probably the hardest. And so Command of Vines requires you to get to the end of the deck. If you get to the end of the deck, you win. Doesn't matter where you are in the board. You've basically kept the peace. Thematically, you've kept the peace in Ankh-Morpork, and actually survived the film. Yeah, it's theme in there. So I think for me, it would have done from having maybe a little bit more in there. But I mean, I think the game's 11 years, 12 years old now. So there's a lot more variety and a lot more modern board games. Maybe we're spoiled by that. So enough of the cons. Pros?
It's tight. The gameplay is tight. It flows really quickly between one person and the other, and the interaction between players is excellent. Some modern games, Paladins, Scythe, you can sit and look at your board in front of you and not look or talk to anybody. But this is a table pleaser for a group of people around a table, and yeah.
I mean, there's no end of times that you put trouble in places so that I couldn't build, and I assassinated your minions, and vice versa, and Brian took buildings off me, and it is tight. You only have 6 buildings, and you only have, I think it's 12 workers. So, and there are only 12 areas on the board, so you are going to be tight as you go across that. And
you've got to dominate 9 of those areas typically in one of the main win conditions, so it's quite hard to get that condition.
Yeah.
It's I like the fact that the turns are quick, so they come around very fast. It's sometimes possibly too quick because you don't really have time to plan what you're going to do. So if you're prone to analysis paralysis, maybe that might be a bit of a con. But I think there's enough variety in the cards in your hand that you can always find something to do.
Yeah, and then that is it. And obviously you've got this hand of 5 cards, you're playing them out, and then you're refilling your hand, unless you're drawing extra cards for any reason. So it is quite quick, it is quite tight. I mean, the fact that we played 3 games of it in one session, and it was, I think our average play time was about 35 to 40 minutes, and that's great. It sort of sits that middle way. I don't think it's any trouble to get out either. And I think that's the bit. It's got a reasonably small footprint. It is just this board, and it's got a few decks of cards. You'll have your player card and your player pieces in front of you. So from a table presence point of view, it's quite small, but it looks nice, and I think the theme will draw people in.
Yeah, it'd fit on a typical kitchen table, won't it? Quite easily.
Yeah.
The other thing to say about it, the rule set, there's not that many rules to it. They're not hard to master. Place meeples, play from your cards, build buildings, move trouble.
Yeah.
React to events.
React to events. Yeah, it's a very it's simple.
Yeah. And obviously getting hold of the areas and having the area control and building buildings gives you a boon, if you will. And each area does something slightly differently. Some giving money, some giving control, some enabling you to move around the board a little bit differently. So obviously now we've deliberated with our thoughts and opinions on the game and the pros, the cons, what we did and how we played it. The question now to be answered is, would we play it again? So, John.
I would play this again now. If we had the time, re-rack it and play it. It's if it comes out to the table without hesitation, I'd play it. And if I had a choice of playing this and somebody had it in their collection, I'd ask to play it.
Yeah. Brian?
I'd play it again. I want to play with a different personality. But even if I had the same personality, I'd still enjoy playing it and try and win this time.
We'll give you a hat and a fake moustache next time.
Yeah, no, I'll play it again now. Yeah.
And for me, I'll probably give it away quite early on in the video. This is I would play again now. I'm probably going to apologise to people that I meet in the next 6 months, because it's probably going to be forced down their throat, because it's a game I really enjoy. But obviously, I'd take that with a pinch of salt, but it is something that I'm so happy that I got it. It was a Grail game for me. I like the theme. I like the idea of the game. I like the collectability of the game as well. But I was hesitant. I hadn't played this before. So I'm really pleased that it's got, so that may well be for me that it is sitting higher than it probably should, because of everything just fits for me. But personally, we'll play again now, and I'd highly recommend it to anybody else.
Can I ask a question at this point? Is it because, do you think, that we don't usually play a lot of take that games, that this is a take that game, that it feels a niche in the games that we play, and that's why we enjoy it so much?
It could well be. I think, yeah, typically we don't play the take that type of game. No. So I think maybe it was a bit refreshing in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. All right then. So thank you for joining us for our inaugural episode of We'll Play Again. Hopefully we'll be doing a few more of these on the channel as it comes along. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. Check out our other videos on the channel, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.